Welcome to Encroachment Sports Talk. And we've hit the quarter pole now in this fresh NFL season. And for all of you fantasy players, it's time to really evaluate, how your team's looking, why your team's looking good or bad. And we've got a little thoughts on that. We're going to go through talking about the fantasy studs so far, studs being those players who have exceeded expectations. We're going to go through duds, those who have fallen well short of expectations. And then at the end, we'll offer a little nugget of our esteemed panel's predictions of who might be a sleeper to pick up to add value to your team going forward at the end of the season. So we're going to start with you, Chris. Why don't you give us the top three studs as you see it so far in this season?
Yeah, thank you, Mark. So this is, I think Jeff and I are both huge fans of fantasy and daily fantasy sometimes. So we appreciate Mark's permission to run this. So thank you, Mark. But so also start with, a rookie receiver, Drake London. Okay. And here's the deal. As you know, you're both huge NFL fans. It is very difficult for a rookie receiver to be super productive in his first year. It's a difficult position to pick up and be successful. He's been very good. He was expected to be good because there's such a lack of receiver depth there. But at 6'4", he's tough, he's fast, he can separate. He's when Calvin Ridley essentially disappeared, who knows where he's on a beach somewhere or something because he just disappeared. He stepped in and he's been able to shine. I think he's averaging 8 targets, 5 receptions, 58 yards, 2 touchdowns to date. He had a bad game last week, but in general, with Mariota at quarterback, I think he's proven to be a real stud and somebody that you want to look to in the future.
And it's easy to succeed with the Hawaiian quarterback thrown to you.
Yeah, don't we know it? Yeah, he's just Tua and Mariota. It's so easy. So anyway, I think he's doing a great job at the rookie receiver position. He would be one. The other guy, this guy's going to be dragged out of nowhere. You guys will laugh at this one, but this guy his name is Pat Fryer-Smooth. And he's
my tight end. I'm not laughing.
Yeah, he's a Pittsburgh tight end, and that's not a real sexy position, tight end. But finding consistency in fantasy from your tight end is a big deal. He's playing with, or he was playing with Trubisky. I think they're going to move on to Pickens now, but he looks good. I mean, he 5 receptions, 56 yards on average per game. He's consistent. He's big. He's tough, and I like what he's doing there with a terrible quarterback, which I think they're going to remedy this week. So
yeah,
he's good.
Sometimes when you get a terrible quarterback, they need a safety valve, right?
Yep.
So that was my strategy in picking him, and that a tight end with a kind of quarterback who's going to be a little more conservative, looking for that safety valve, a little hitting the tight end. So
absolutely, he's the security blanket for Trubisky, who will now be on the pine, I think. The third guy is a guy that he's been up at the top of the rankings for a while, but I think people kind of overlooked him with the draft and stuff. And that's James Robinson. He's running back out of Jacksonville. And everyone, I think, when ETN was drafted, was saying, "Hey, look, this Robinson kid who, was lightly drafted, not really well known, but proved himself to be a capable player. He's going to be overlooked." Well, he's shined. I mean, again, he had a kind of a down game last week against the Eagles. But if you take that game out, he's got over the 3 games before last week, 230 yards, 4 TDs, and he also catches the ball pretty well. He's got burst. He's got, he's low to the ground. He's good at the goal line. I like the kid, and I'm glad that they continue to use him, even with what they may consider, more sexy, higher rated options, ETN and some of those other people. So anyway, he's another one that I'm real high on.
Yeah, that's a good call. That always burns me when I'm picking a team, is that I get caught up in the sexy name. So I avoid James Robinson, at all costs, not at all costs, but it's, and that's a mistake. You have to look past the sexy name. So a really good call there.
Thank you.
Jeff, how about
Mark,
you?
You said sexy name, and man, it doesn't get any sexier than Saquon Barkley.
You're not a New York fan, are you? Come on.
Oh my God, Saquon! I hate to be the homer, the New York homer here, but I'm going to do it, right? Saquon is back. There's no denying. He's playing like a man who has a lot to prove, right? Rushing attempts, 84. He's first. 463 total yards today, which is first in the league as well. 2 touchdowns, tied for 10th. Danny Dobbs is taking away some of those touchdowns because he's running the ball a lot. But 5.5 average per carry, which is 10th in the NFL, right? Through last season, everyone thought, man, what happened to Saquon Barkley, right? It was injuries upon injuries, changes in the coaching staff. But believe it or not, dare I say it, and I hope my words today don't jinx him for the rest of the season, but Saquon is back. His last performance against the Bears, right? He rushed 31 times for 146 yards in a Giants thriller, 20-12 over the Bears. So Saquon, sexy name, he's back.
I should have clarified for Jeff, we're asking for second and third place because we knew who was coming on the top of his list. Let me ask you a question, Jeff, as the resident Giants expert. Watching that Cowboys game, I had questions about their offensive line. Do you believe they're successfully run blocking this year and their issues come with pass blocking, or is he doing all this behind a suspect offensive line in both aspects of the game?
Good question.
Great question. I believe he's done it behind a suspect offensive line. Yeah. Neal is a rookie, still young. Thomas is a second or third year player, still relatively young. And with the injuries that we had dating back to last season, I still believe we have some growing pains with this offensive line. So what he's doing this season is rather remarkable because other than Neal, there hasn't really been much upgrade to this offensive line, right? So he is playing behind 60% of the same offensive line or same players that he had last season. I think it's with the coaching and with the new strategy of protecting the football, protecting Danny Jones, and run the ball through Saquon Barkley, and everything else will open up. Yeah. I believe that has been the success for the Giants today.
It has been.
Yeah, I'll just say personally, I was burned by Saquon because all these best ball drafts that I participate in, I kind of overlooked him because I didn't see that burst coming back last year, even though he's injured a little bit. But the burst is back. I mean, he looks like the guy that was drafted. I'm pretty enthusiastic for him going forward, Jeff, and certainly happy for you. So.
Yeah. And speaking of being back, right, the second on my list, I'm going to keep a consistency here. I'm going to keep it on my running backs. Josh Jacobs, right? Yeah. General consensus across fantasy football landscape all summer was Josh Daniels' arrival in Las Vegas, right, would mean high heights for Derek Carr, Adams, Hunter Renfrow, and that whole offense, right? But guess what? Josh Jacobs, after a subpar season last year, he has come back and he's make a notable state within that offense. He has played 71% of the snaps to date through 4 games, and he's also catching the ball out of the backfield. So when I look at Josh Jacobs through 4 games, he has 70 rushing attempts, which is tied for 7th, top 10, 336 yards, tied for 5th, and also averaging 4.8, almost 5 yards per carry, and also 2 touchdowns. So I believe Josh Jacobs is, he's not Saquon-esque, but he is right there.
So you're telling me
nobody is, Jeff.
You're telling me I've made a huge mistake by putting Josh Jacobs on my bench then, huh?
Absolutely. Mark, you got to find a way to get Josh Jacobs back in your lineup. With Adams getting double teamed, and that offense too, you have Waller, right? So they're split so wide, and you can't have 5, 6, 7 players in the box because Adams is going to have a field day and Waller is going to have a field day. So you got to get Josh Jacobs back in your lineup no matter what.
Yep, good call.
And so who's your number 3?
I'm going to be a homer. Here we go. This is going to be 3 for 3. I'm going running back, right? Rashard Penny. He's my guy as having a breakout season so far. I don't know if anyone saw the performance last week against the Lions defense, but he rushed 17 times for 151 yards. And I got it, Mark. Yes, very relative, small sample size. through 4 games, right? We're expecting more. But compared to where Penny was last year, he is so far, I believe, the steal of any fantasy draft of whoever picked him up. Penny was more than likely picked up in late 8th or 9th round, right? Compared to Saquon or Dalvin Cook or some of the other McCaffrey or some of the other big names. So 2 touchdowns against the Lions last week. So far, I believe he's top 10. You can't beat it. And by the way, his Penny next 4 opponents, he's playing the Saints, the Cardinals, the Chargers, and also my beloved Giants. And when you look at these teams, they're not the greatest strong defenses. So I believe if you have Penny in your lineup or you have him on your team, you can slot him in over the next 4 weeks, as he's been a stud through 4 to this day.
Interesting. Okay.
Well, let me just say one quick thing on that. So he had a great game, but there's some recency bias there, I think, Jeff. So, he had a great game. He killed me last week personally. But, if he shows what he did last week, then he's going to be a superstar. So go ahead, Mark. Sorry.
With the passing game and Geno, oh, my God, I can't believe I'm going to say this. But with this new Geno Smith and him getting Will Dissly involved and getting DK Metcalf involved, I believe it will only further open up the running game for that team. So just my hunch.
Yep. Good call.
So my take on this, and you guys know I'm a numbers guy, so I looked at the numbers, and I'm a couple of things. One, I'm surprised not a single one of my players even got on your list, because to me the numbers just are glaring if they jump out. The second thing is that I feel like I'm in the twilight zone in that all 3 of my guys are Detroit Lions. The Detroit Lions are, 1, they're putting up historic offensive numbers, but 2, their defense is so bad that it forces the offense to play catch up, and because they're not winning games, they've put up amazing numbers. So number 3 on my list is a guy I completely wrote off after the Super Bowl for the LA Rams a few years ago, and Jared Goff. I'm like, this guy just does not have it. And Jared Goff was, so here's the way I looked at it. I looked at their average number of points above expected. And the way I did that was by looking at their current their pre-draft ranking according to ESPN, and then their current ranking according to ESPN. And I took the number of points scored by those 2 slots and took the difference. And Jared Goff had a pre-draft ranking for quarterbacks of number 19th. And right now he's number 5th of all quarterbacks. And that accounts for 7.4 points above expected, which is huge, but not number 1. So number 2 is Jamal Williams.
Yeah, I thought about him.
Who had
it. Yeah, he had a pre-draft ranking of 38. He's going to be people's, at the end of their draft, just throwing out a bone, or probably undrafted free agent for many. And he's 8.5 right now. He's number 6 as well in running back. So and this is based upon average, which we'll get to my last guy. But Jamal Williams is 8.5 points per game above expected, and that's in a PPR type scoring system. Number 1 at the top is Amon-Ra St. Brown. I know he's been injured. He's coming off this ankle injury, but the numbers he put up over those first 3 games,
stellar.
Yeah, he's the number 2 in terms of average points per game behind Cooper Kupp. And to get that kind of production from a guy who is, 20th in his pre-draft ranking, just amazing. And to find these 3 guys from one team at the top of the list. And originally when I was doing the preparation, I was considering for each position, and guess who's number 1 in terms of average points over possession? Hawkinson. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, it is crazy.
All Detroit Lions,
The one big caveat there, Mark, and I like your analysis, and you are numbers guys, no doubt. But remember, Williams was he was going to play second fiddle to Swift. So there was a injury that let him have this opportunity. So not that that matters, because he's taken most of this opportunity. And I always thought he was a good running back, even with Green Bay. But But I agree. I mean, that Detroit team is not the old Detroit team, Jeff, that you said. It's got a hell of an offense, and I certainly don't like playing in the division. That's for sure.
The problem is, Mark, you are a numbers guy. So you always miss the eye test, right? And if you were looking, you would see that I'm rocking Detroit colors all across the gray and the blue, Mark. The problem is, Mark, you are a number analytical guy. So what Chris and I always drive at is the eye test. And I already beat you to it, Mark. Blue, gray, man. Lions, baby.
I forgot to tell you, Mark is colorblind. So
man, I gotta issue an apology to the Detroit Lions because I came on this show roughly 2 weeks ago, or 3 weeks ago rather, and I beat them over the head. Well, this is my way of apologizing. I'm wearing Detroit colors.
There you go.